The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back to David Mackey's Shiny Side Out on freedomslips.com, broadcasting on the number one listener-supported talk radio you'll find on the internet. Go to the station's website and push the donate button, and maybe get yourself some merch, a mug or a t-shirt. There's some really cool things there, and they're all designed by one of the other hosts called A Mad Painter. They're really cool, and I've got myself a mug. I did a co-branded Shiny Side Out mug and Revolution Radio mug for Mickey and I, and
That's
it's
right.
Huge. Is it like 20 ounce or something? Like, it's 600 mils. It's pretty big. It's good for soup in winter, and you can have a nice icy drink in it in summertime. And anyway, so we also made a smaller, like teacup size one. But you can find that on our Zazzle page. Go to our website, shinysideout.net, and check out our merchandise. We also have a donate for us. And if you're interested in doing any business style promotions through Shiny Side Out, do get in contact via our website. It has a page you can type it in, and you can get our contact details. We're halfway through show number 560.
Whoa, 60 and 500. Just on the max size there.
Mm-hmm.
The larger size is for manly men, and the smaller size is for girly men. Girly men, you're all girly men. I don't know if you remember that or not, but that was hilarious when Arnie was in the Californian government. Are you all girly men?
So I remember that now. The smaller mug will make your hands look bigger if you're interested in doing it that way, looking at it that way. Do you remember? I think it was a Seinfeld episode, wasn't it? With the kids getting smaller.
No, he was dating a woman with enormous hands. Remember that?
That's right.
She had man hands. Oh no, look at her hands.
So, all the equal opportunity across the planet, and we're making these jokes,
We're equal opportunity haters. That's right. We're hating them all. We're hating everybody equally.
Now, we're halfway through show number 560.
That's what we are, my friend. Now, what are we talking about? That's the question.
Good grief!
No,
he doesn't do it now. This is when he doesn't do it. Right? Okay.
That's when he doesn't do it. No, He doesn't. Well, how about them apples?
Yeah.
No. So look,
I tried twice. That's shame on me.
Right? Shame on you, huh? When you fool me once, shame on me.
Yeah.
On you. Shame on you. You fool me twice, shame on
me.
You also.
But
what I mean is, if you get fooled once, you can't get fooled again. You see?
Well, you shouldn't be fooled again.
And then you follow that straight up with there are known knowns, there are known unknowns, there are unknown unknowns, and then there are the things we just don't know about at all. Yes.
Okay, I'm getting a headache.
So golden. It is golden, I say. No. Recently,
He's going to mention the topic any minute now.
No, he will. It'll happen. I looked at the state of the world, and I came to a very dire realization.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you why dire. Because I thought we had moved beyond a certain mindset. I thought we had moved beyond the influence of certain things on our lives, but we haven't. And what we're going to talk about over the next few weeks is the origin of religion, and also what the religion that you think you have actually means. I'm going to focus with Dave here. We're going to focus on the major religions. I want to say 5 or 6. If there's a specific interest from the chat room or anyone else, we're happy to shine a light on that as well. But we will look at the Abrahamic religions. We will look at Hinduism, Buddhism, probably Zoroastrianism, Jainism. There are a few others as well. Maybe even paganism, which is a misnomer. But let's just go with what people understand. Because if you look at the state of the world, there are countries in the world today, Dave, that allow you to behead, amputate, and stone people to death based on what it says in a book that was written by a person who said they were presenting the word of God. A God, doesn't matter which God.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. That's a thing. Yeah,
that happens. Okay,
and
we also
there might be a world sporting event going on there at the moment, but we won't mention it.
There might be. Just on that very quickly. Sorry, I saw this fantastic, and I think it's true. I don't know if you noticed, but Budweiser is sponsoring the FIFA, the World Cup.
That's correct.
Right now, right? And they sent a whole bunch of beer to that place with with the queue.
As they do. Yeah, promotions teams. Yeah.
Only to realize, excuse me, that you can't really sell any of that stuff here. It's like having, I don't know, like having a heroin conglomerate, or heroin,
sponsoring
gang.
a sporting event.
And say, heroin is really illegal, but we'll take your money for the sponsorship. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But
and then at the last minute, then cancel the order and
we've
start
already
dumping
sent the heroin. Yeah, but the heroin is already in the country. We're already cooking it up, man. We're already cutting it with rat poison. What you doing over here?
Did you see what people were doing? They were
doing?
Covering the cans with traditional soft drink.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they were, and taking them in, and they were being confiscated at the door, saying, "Open the can." I don't want to open the can. Well, you get a choice. You can open the can, or you can put it in the bin. I'm just going to put it in the bin. And then there's footage of them peeling the label off, showing the Budweiser beneath.
That's funny. That is funny. But honestly, see, this is okay. So just to hold that thought, everybody, hold that thought. Now, because we need to talk about this clash of cultures, and you will not find one. And recently, though, another thing happened, right? And you have to understand what is motivating these things. So what happened in the United States was that a long-standing legal position was overturned based on what the Supreme Court judges felt was the right thing to do. And it's not really in the purview of the Supreme Court in the United States to change law or to make law. It's to interpret the law. That's really what they're there for.
That's right.
I mean, you can bring constitutional cases to them. You can. Then
that's the same as our High Court.
Yeah, absolutely. But they made the determination. So the federal protection of Roe v. Wade is now gone. Now, what that meant was that even if your state didn't allow abortion, or was frowning upon or whatever, it didn't have any federal backing on that. So you could still do whatever you wanted. And they couldn't really punish you for it. Now that has gone away. And if you wanted to have an abortion, and I'm not saying you should, and I'm not saying I'm for it, but the point I'm trying to make here is that the mindset that led to this decision. So now I like life. It's infinitely preferable to the alternative, as Douglas Adams put it once. But ultimately, we're taking away someone's right to choose, whatever the circumstances might be. And I don't know. I'm not the wisest person in the world, and I don't think anybody is the wisest person in the world, and everybody's circumstances are different, and people might be in dire straits and might be forced to do things that are less than agreeable to some. But what is it based on? What it was based on is a very deeply held religious view that abortion is murder because the Bible says that you shouldn't kill, etc., etc. That's one of the commandments: you shouldn't kill, which is funny because the Bible is probably the biggest book of wholesale slaughter that I've ever read in my life. But nonetheless, so it is a deep, because the thing is, the challenge to the Supreme Court was brought by a deeply religious group. They said, we want to challenge Roe v. Wade, okay, and we want to challenge this one, and that challenge succeeded. All right, so we have religion. So people used to think, I think for most of the 20th century, or at least the second half of the 20th century, people used to think, religion doesn't really come into it anymore, right? We're living in democracies, representative or otherwise. Corporations are taking over. They're not really religious, so no one gives a hoot. And for the longest time, I believe, maybe 50, 60 years, we believed, well, it's not really, it's part of the conversation, but it's not really a deciding factor now, is it? Well, I beg to differ. I think it's a massively deciding factor. Now, there are two things here. One, I think religion is being used by a handful of people to further their own aims. And those people may or may not believe. It's completely irrelevant, but they're using religion to further their aims, right? But I think there's also a whole bunch of people that really believe. They really, really believe what it says in these books or what some people have said. One of the most important and horrendous crises that we faced in the last years was when ISIS was trying to take over the Levant. They were trying to establish a caliphate. Now, what is that? Essentially, it's like Saudi Arabia. It's a country or an amalgamation of countries whose laws are based on the Quran, so Sharia law. That's what they tried to establish, and they brought back such joyful institutions, never-ending fun as slave markets. That came back. Taking prisoners and selling them as slaves, women and children. That's what fun that is.
Productivity is going to go up.
Productivity went up. And all of that based upon their interpretation of a certain belief system.
That's correct.
Okay. And some of the most horrendous acts recently as well were inspired by religion. Terrorist attacks, certainly, right? Mm-hmm. Mass suicides. I mean, and these are. I mean, some of these are fringe groups, of course. There was the case of David Koresh in Waco. Where we can go into this in some detail, but where the U.S. government felt compelled to extinguish that belief system together with its adherents, based on whatever charges they felt were necessary at the time, domestic terrorism, gun charges, child abuse, etc., etc. Never mind whether or not they were true or not. Irrelevant, completely irrelevant. Master was, yeah.
I just want to say that the Roe versus Wade are the same contextually as what we see as the euthanasia rules or the rulings in countries or states where they're determining whether to allow euthanasia. However, it's only upon their need for those people who are currently voting where their parents or relatives have gone through it personally, where they've agreed to the euthanasia being lawful. When they're separated from that decision or from the experience, they're usually they decline to vote in favor of it.
Yeah, and thank you, Dave. That's an excellent example as well, because the euthanasia debate is exactly the same debate as the abortion debate.
That's right.
Debate. And no, Becky, it's not. No, it is.
It is.
It is because the thing is this, right?
You're voting to kill.
What is euthanasia? Euthanasia is the willful ending of a life. But the circumstances here are that this person wants to die. Maybe all treatments have failed and they're in constant agony, right? I mean, there are people that are suffering horrendously, and should they be made to suffer if they choose not to? Is it up to us to decide what level of pain they can take? Whereas a woman might be in mortal danger if her pregnancy comes to term, for instance. Right? I'm not saying that happens better. And it certainly shouldn't be a willy-nilly kind of thing where you just feel like, I feel like an abortion in the afternoon, off I go. No, it shouldn't be like that at all. It's a very serious thing which needs serious consideration by anyone involved. Okay, so I'm not being cavalier with this at all.
No,
but ultimately,
go on.
No, go.
Oh, see, my idea about the abortion rule should also apply to conception. You should put a lot of thought into how, when, and with whom you're choosing to conceive, accidentally or not.
In fact, that's the perfect segue for my next point. See, the thing is this, because the Catholic Church, and specifically, not only, but specifically, has taken it upon itself to decide that prophylactics, prophylactics are no longer, in fact, never were God's will. Every act of procreation should have the chance to say, every sperm is good. Every act of procreation in the eyes of the Catholic Church should have the chance to result in a pregnancy. Now, let's be very clear here. People that use prophylactics do not do so simply to avoid falling pregnant. They're also used to prevent the spread of venereal diseases.
Sexually transmitted diseases, that's right.
Correct. And you go, what? So let's be very clear. People will engage in carnal activity. Full stop. Okay? And we're going to talk about that as well with the nuns and the priests. Don't you worry about that. I'll bring that. I'll bring it. So nobody is immune from this, really. Okay? There might be a few holy people that can actually, get away with it, but ultimately,
or can actually abstain. Yeah.
Ultimately, most of us, we're driven by our hormones, and it's just, the way we're designed. But the point is that, okay, so you can't have an abortion, right? You must have a child, so you can't prevent a child from being born or being conceived in the first place. You can't do that either, right? And even worse, some of these institutions put rules in place that go completely against human nature, like abstinence, like no carnal activity before marriage. All of these completely insane rules that are somewhat necessary. And we're going to talk about the cities here as well, and commandments, etc., and why religion was necessary for the building of cities. But ultimately, we are still very deeply governed by religion. So people think that's not the case. But I tell you right now, the state of the world is the way it is because largely of religious beliefs that are being held by people. I'll give you another horrific example. You look at India for a second. Right? Here we go. Turn your eyes away from Rome and look at India. Now, India has got 1.2, 1.3 billion people. It's purported to be the largest democracy in the world, which is pretty cool. That's a cool title for a country to have, right? It really is. They fought for their independence. They kicked the British out and all that, right? And kudos to them. But the Hindu caste system is one of the most oppressive systems in the world. And you will say, oh, that's a thing of the past. No, it isn't. So to this day, and I've been to India a number of times, and I read the local newspapers, right? Not in Sanskrit or Hindi, but in English. But I do read them, and the violations that especially the lower castes are subjected to are horrific. If you read about it, I urge you not to. Don't look it up because it'll just give you it will give you nightmares. It's stuff that you do not want to know this, but it happens. Why? Because, well, in Hinduism, right? Sorry, let me rephrase that. With the caste system, you're born into a caste. You're born into a caste for a reason. Because you led a good life before, your karmic points added up, or you had a bad life before, you're a horrible person. And the worse a life you led, the belief goes, the lower caste you will be, until you might be born as a rat or a worm or whatever, right? But the lowest caste members are seen as, well, this is your fault. You're the lowest caste because you had a horrible life. You're a horrible person in a previous life, so it's your fault. Okay? And so you better do whatever you can to make amends and have a better life next life.
And it's the brave new world where you're held in those roles.
Yeah. And this is going on forever. That's why one of the tenets of both Buddhism and Hinduism is to get off the cycle of reincarnation, right? You want to get off it. But the point is, it's a horrifically oppressive system. People get killed and violated and excluded. And this is the funny thing. I saw this in action. I worked a lot in Southeast Asia. People from different castes, they will not congregate together. So to me, I'm a stupid Westerner, right? Okay, my dad is Turkish, mom is German, there's some Ukrainian, Russian, whatever. So Bulgarian. But the point is, I'm mostly European. And I go to Southeast Asia, and I go to the office, and to me, look, there's a whole bunch of people. Some look South Asian, some look Asian. By South Asian, I mean Indian or Pakistani or something. And so I figured they all, just hang out together. No, not so. In fact, to the point where I was the go-between between two people from India, because they belonged to different castes, and one couldn't talk to the other.
That's right.
And I thought, excuse me. Yeah, well, no, that can't happen. No. Oh, we're all going up for drinks. Well, no, not if he's going, we're not.
Yeah, that's right.
and I'm thinking, so let's be very clear here. It's a real thing, which is also then carried across to other nations, not just in India. So religion is still very much governing the way we live. We might think ourselves to be enlightened. We might think ourselves to be emancipated and clear thinkers and give rational thought and science the day. But ultimately and deep down, I think there's in many of us, not all, but in many of us, there's still this need for a crutch, and religion provides a very handy crutch, because for the most part, it takes away responsibility, or it says, hey, what you have in life, that's because you had a good life before. You were a good person before. So that's why you're blessed this life as well. So yes, enjoy the fruits of your riches, even if you didn't work for it, right? So it is still very much with us. And in fact, one of the most troubling developments over the last few decades was the formation of groups in the United States, very fundamentalist believers, that went to Israel, the Middle East in general, actively working to bring about the second coming of Christ. Now, what is that? It is the belief that Jesus died at the cross for our sins, and so forth, and then some time would pass, and then Jesus would come back again, the second coming of Christ, at which point he will take all the true believers into heaven, rapture, etc. Wonderful, off we go. But that needs to happen yet, and it can only happen after the Battle of Megiddo. What's that, Megiddo? So you heard of Armageddon, I'm sure. So it's not just a willy-nilly term. Armageddon is a place. It's a place in Israel, the valley of Megiddo, and what it says in the Bible is that the Antichrist, etc., will fight the righteous forces in this valley. This will be the final battle between them. So they're working actively on that scenario. That's the thing. That's the thing. There were people that I think it was Aum Shinrikyo in Japan that released sarin, nerve gas, in the Japanese Tokyo.
In the subway. That's right.
In the subway.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
Mm-hmm.
What? I mean, I'm not even entirely sure what they believed in, to be honest with you, right? But the strength of their belief was enough for them to commit this atrocity. And it goes on. And people, see, this is what I'm worried about, and this is why we're going to spend a little bit of time on it over the next few weeks. And I know a lot of you are going to hate it, but so what? It's important, because if we don't understand it, then we're just going to walk blindly into the darkness, okay? Falling off a cliff. That's what's going to happen here. What we're seeing here is a time in which we are uncertain and fearful. We talked about this before, the twin pillars of control. And a lot of people are taking advantage of that. But if you can give certainty, this is the time of polarization, make no mistake. Israel just elected the most right-wing government ever. And Brazil, the most left-wing government ever, after having had the most right-wing government ever, right? And look, I don't know what you would call people like Xi Jinping or Vladimir Putin or Kim Jong-il, I think. Kim Jong-un. I mean, you would call them, I guess, pretty, right-wing. I mean, they're certainly polarizing, right? they've got certain agendas, and I mean, you don't have to give them a designation of left or right, but you can call them, it's Putinism or Kimism or Jingism or whatever you want to call it in
You're
China.
usually not alive if you're against them.
Well, that's the thing, right? So there's a polarization, and we see the rise of strong men, and specifically men that we see here that seem to rise here. And similarly, that's how Trump was perceived by many, to the rise of the strong man, the person that can make America great again,
A
etc.
non-establishment person, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, 100%.
There's also wokeism and all of this sexual ambivalence right now. It's just choose whatever you want.
Yes,
but
exactly.
That isn't in those countries.
No, but see, no, it's not.
That's another point. Another point here.
In fact, in North Korea and China and in Russia, it's illegal.
That's right.
You can't be that. Okay, to be very clear.
Mm-hmm.
Nor can you be on the Arab Peninsula if you're found to be that. Good luck to you.
Yeah.
So, and again, this is driven. That particular thing is driven by religion. Okay, so none of the fundamentalist views, none of the religions, feel comfortable with homosexuality. Not a one.
Mm-hmm.
Not one. Think about that for a second. Right? Well, I think the pendulum has swung too far, in my opinion. That's just me saying it, right? I think we have become too pushy on the subject. You know what? If you're gay, you're gay. Good for you. I don't care. If you're a nice person, I'll be your friend. If you're not, I probably don't want to know you.
Mm-hmm.
What you do in your bedroom doesn't really affect me. I don't care. I really don't care.
I don't want to have to know.
No,
I'm not prejudiced against you. I just think there's some things you should keep to yourself.
Right? It's not like I'm driving around the city, with a big placard on my car saying, "I'm going to make love to my wife tonight because I'm a proud heterosexual." So
that's you're not allowed to do that either. Right?
But the point is, I know, right? but that's what we're doing here. So in my opinion, this has gone too far in one way, but it needed to go that way because of the horrendous suppression and oppression of people. Because people are a certain way, and you can tell. I mean, I worked in retail, believe it or not, and in school there were people that were that way, and in university as well. And either they were nice people or they were not nice people. Their sexuality didn't come into it, but you knew that's what they were. There was no confusion.
That's right.
Right? But it didn't matter. Okay, no. It didn't matter. Whereas now it seems to matter both ways. We make it matter. It should matter, but that's neither here nor there. But it is the fun. This is most religious people have a really, really hard time coming to terms with homosexuality, male or female, but mostly male. That seems to be the bugbear, right? You know what? Mind your own business. It's got nothing to do with anyone. Don't ask. Don't tell. Right? Be proud of who you are. Go out with your boyfriend, your girlfriend. So what? Do it. I mean, hold hands. Just have whatever the reasonable amount of public affection is. Have that and be done with it, right? And then we all just live our lives. Thank you very much. And it doesn't matter. Can two men raise a child? Yes. Can two women raise a child? Yes. Of course they can. It takes a village, but yes, you can. Yes,
I prefer that we accepted multi-generational housing again.
Oh, so many of our problems just wouldn't exist.
100%, that's true. Yeah. I'll hand it back to you, but I wanted to say we hit the 8 billion persons on Earth just last week, yeah? And I want to say I really thought we would have all been dragged kicking and screaming into a new world where there was oppression was deleted. Because I think, shouldn't we at this point be at that echelon? Is it something we should have been striving for? If we miss the ascension, right? If that was taken away from us, we're going to wait a whole cycle to get there. And this period with there being still conflicting religions is a horrific place to be in. All the past times when religion has been at the forefront, there has been wars at the forefront based on, religious ideals.
Mhm.
And I don't see that getting any better. If there's no separation between religion and governance, then it's only set to continue.
Yeah.
And I don't know where we're going. This is crazy. Let's continue with the history, because
Well,
I had to focus in on the now just for a minute.
yeah, but you're right though, right? This is the critical thing. I mean, the way we're heading, rather than away from more deeply entrenched religionism, I like to call it,
Mm-hmm.
we're moving headlong into it. Again, faith is a good thing. Believe whatever you like.
Mhm.
That's all good. I dig it. But what I've just described, these realities, they exist today. We are no better than we were 1,000 years ago.
Mm.
If you really think about it for a second here. You look at the things that are happening in the name of religion, the laws that are being passed in the name of religion, of this god or that god, or another god or gods, or the great spaghetti monster or whatever, right? And on top of that, this is where I find we're living in a very psychotic, or rather schizophrenic, not psychotic, schizophrenic kind of world, where if somebody came along and said, I am Jesus Christ, the second coming, right? And then goes around and preaches poverty and blah blah blah. You know what happened to that person? They would be locked up so fast their head was going to spin. Okay, their head would spin. Woo 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 woo. Yeah, I heard about that. That's right. So Dave's going to share something with you in a second. But if that person then came along, right, we would lock them up. We would lock them up, and then we would call them. Maybe we call them the bishops and the whoever, and maybe the rabbis, and say, hey, this kid here, well, what do you think? Or this man says he's the second coming. What does he say? He's preaching poverty? No, that's not him. That's no, wrong guy. Lock him up. The message that Jesus, like talking about, let's talk about Jesus just for a second. The message that Jesus is supposed to have had 2,000 years ago wouldn't play well at all with today's churches. Not at all. Wouldn't be a good message to be telling anyone. Can you imagine the Jesus that we read about in the New Testament in Rome? Yeah, meeting the Pope amongst the gold and marble and ivory. Can you? So what do you call this then? Oh, this is called Christianity. Oh, really? Where'd that come from? Well, it's really sort of remembering you. What?
That's right. What's the cross for?
See, this is, thank you. Your segue king today. You've got me on the cross. You remember my death. Okay, I get it. But you don't remember my life. You remember my death, but what about my life? Do you remember what I used to say? Do you remember how I used to live? You remember my death, and it's gruesome, but you don't remember my life. What is this? You're cutting deals. You're making money. You are worldly, not godly, right? That's what Jesus would say. In fact, the world is in a much worse state than when he went into the temple in Jerusalem and started losing his marbles a bit, kicking everybody out. What are you doing? This is not a market. This is not a house of commerce. This is the house of God. What are you doing? So just wanted to say that. I wanted to throw in there, because I'm sure that's going to get everybody's blood boiling.
All right, so I can make it boil a little more furiously. And that is, if he was alive today and he was shot, then we'd all have a bullet around our necks on a necklace. Doesn't that the whole thing about the story and being kind and doing all these things and treating everyone equally, even in the stories, living and making contact with, speaking with even criminals and the people who weren't the top of society, but rather the frontline people, and apart from turning water into wine and walking on water, all that, wasn't the full message there that we should just treat everybody equally, right?
Yeah.
But what we do, we just remember that he died. Yay, right? Woo! I wear a cross around my neck as a symbol that he died. Okay, what about the symbol of all of the other components of the message? So I want to thanks Becky for bringing that up. That's really funny. Israel Rabbi says he's already holding meetings with the new Messiah. And I've got the story here. It says a snapshot of Israel's spiritual hunger as biggest rabbis are afraid to leave country lest they miss Messiah's coming. Right? And it says in a recent interview on Israel's radio featured prominent rabbis explaining that Messiah is just about to reveal himself. And they said that it's a small child who's already now fully versed in their religion, is able to speak to them on their level. I think that's the gist of the story. I'm just going to close on the story again. But okay, but hang on a minute. Wasn't it foretold that the first one that is announced is the wrong one?
Yeah, the false prophets.
Yes.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Isn't that what that's supposed to be? It's kind of like reading the quatrains and trying to work it out after it's happened. And like, I don't know.
Is his name Damien?
It's got 3 6s on his head. I'm not sure what that's supposed to mean. I think they're 9s. Right? Or maybe I was looking at them upside down. So yeah, I don't know, Becky. This is some really weird territory we're going into, because we had all those blood moons. We had the 4 of them around, looking back in time around the birth of this child, because it was, when was it, like 2014, 17 or something, right? And now the child's old enough to be able to be conversed with by the rabbis. And look, I'm concerned if this is, if it's real, and it was actually real, I mean real, then good times, right?
Yeah.
I hope. As long as people don't get all, righteous in their religion and all the others are wrong, then they end up back at war again. Yeah? Or who's going to want to kill him? Everyone else is going to want to kill him.
Yeah.
You thought it was bad last time, right? So I'd become a little wary of this messaging and why they would be wanting to make this declaration now. Because they're supposed, from what I understand, they're supposed to own the Temple Mount. So at some point, and then all the new stuff happens. So are we going through the tribulations yet? I haven't heard the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse and all the trumpets. I haven't heard any of those yet. So maybe is the trumpet is the message, or was it truly a sound? I don't know. So I do follow this quite closely, but I'm very concerned about the people who are adamant that this is happening and what position that puts us in.
We should all be concerned, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
We should all be concerned. Because, look, honestly, who knows? Who knows? If people believe it, that's enough. It's enough for people to believe it. It's enough for people to take action. If people believe it, they will take action. And trust me, that action is not going to be something we want to see, right? And what you just described is, I mean, I think all of those scenarios, I mean, what would happen? What would happen, right? And the answer is, I honestly don't know, except I don't think it'd be good. I don't think it'd be good at all. I think it's dreadful. But, nonetheless, there we are. So, and that's why we're going to talk for the next, and again, we're going to talk about the origin of this stuff, guys. Because a lot of people don't understand where it all started, or how it started, or what it actually means, right? I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions, I think, out there as to what the religion actually says. we're gonna bust some myths here, I think, and potentially make a lot of people unhappy. But you know what? I dig it. That's cool. And everything we're gonna bring to you is gonna be completely factual. We're not gonna make anything up, right? And you might be surprised when we get to the end of it and go, oh wow, is that what it means? Really? Well, the answer is yeah. That's what it means, and that's how it started, and that's how we all, started to believe this. Oh my goodness! And to be honest, I think a lot of us just don't understand. Even if, let's say, you're a certain religion, do you fully understand what it is that you actually meant to believe? That's my question to you. And in my experience, very few people fully understand what their religion actually teaches, what the tenets are, what you have to do, what you don't have to do. The basic fundamental things, sure, sin and credit, and you gotta pray, and you gotta be good to people, and blah blah blah, and a whole bunch of stuff, right? But ultimately, the deeper meanings are completely lost. People, and nobody, sorry, and nobody knows, Dave. And what worries me is people that profess I'm this and I'm that, and I'm not anything myself. I just have a keen interest. But as soon as I ask questions, it's not comfortable. What do you mean, Maggie? Well, what does that mean? And what does this do? And how does that work? People get uncomfortable. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to talk to you anymore because it's not something that they think about. But they're quite happy to tell everybody, yeah, that's what I am. Oh, really? And they're also quite happy to spit on other people. That is not that. That are not
cast aspersions on others.
Yeah, 100%. Very happy to.
Yeah.
And you know what the biggest crime is, in my opinion? That's just my opinion.
Wearing a different coloured hat.
That's the worst. We should never wear different coloured hats. No, children. We teach our children.
I know. Hate. Yeah.
And to distinguish and treat differently, and
I think the teaching of religion to children is wrong, and it should be something that you're like you're drinking or voting or what have you. That it should be at a mature age where you can make an informed decision.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing, though. Okay, if you haven't got children, then it's going to be hard to understand. But children will come at you with all kinds of questions. They just do. It's their job. That's their job. Their job is to ask questions about the world so they understand it better. Okay? And a lot of the questions you might not find easy to answer. And that's okay. I mean, a lot easier today because there's Google, there's some books, hopefully you've read a couple of books in your life. And you can always ask people as well. But you should be as honest with your children as you can be. But a lot of people find it hard. So what do? You go back to what you think you know. You go back to the road answers, right? Oh, what happened to Jesus? Why is there a caste system? Why are why don't we invite Jewish people over for dinner? Whatever it might be, and then you give them the answer that you were taught, that you think is the correct answer, but not knowing what is it. And the perfect example for that is this: there was this ad campaign that was running in Australia, and I think it was internet. It was about the internet speed, and being able to access information, etc., etc. And there was this guy, he was a great actor, and his child comes up to him and says, "Oh, Dad, why did the Chinese build the Great Wall of China?" And his dad looks at him, no idea, clearly.
He's puzzled for a minute.
Yeah.
And then answers,
"Rabbits, son, to keep the rabbits out."
Too many rabbits in China.
Now this is funny in Australia because we actually have a rabbit problem, and there's a rabbit-proof fence that runs a fairly long distance in Australia. So that actually happens. Okay.
So he took what he knew and he applied it to that answer. But the funny part of that is then the child, this was actually on the way to school, and the child, unbeknownst to the father, that was his research for his, show and tell.
Yeah.
And then he announced to the class that was the answer he was going to give.
Yeah.
Oh boy!
I mean, this is so we Now, this is, of course, a comical situation in a comical example, and it's meant to make people smile or even laugh. But ultimately, that's what we're doing to our children if we don't give them the best possible answer. Now, we can't know everything, and nobody's ever supposed to know everything. And if you don't know something, then it's okay to say, I don't know. But let's find out.
That's why everyone, that's why families used to have Encyclopedia Britannica in their house.
Yeah. 100%.
To answer those questions.
100%. Absolutely. And it's even easier today. I mean, you probably have to be a bit more careful. Yeah, but I mean, again,
just Google it. Yeah.
Just Google it. The first answer is the right one. No, no, but it should be an activity then that you can undertake with your child to find out if you don't know the answer. And if you know the answer, then okay. But what worries me is when you're convinced of the answer, you tell your child, but it is the wrong answer, right? Like I'll give you an example. Let's say your child comes to you and says, "Oh, why do the Dalits never come into our stores?" Now, the Dalits are the lowest caste in India. Okay, so just by way of explanation, the untouchables almost. Well, because they were terrible people in their last life, and they're being punished this life, and that's why they're the lowest caste. Oh, says your child. Understood. Do you think that's the right answer? Now, in the context that you understand, it is. But let me assure you, it is not the right answer. And I don't care if I'm stepping on all kinds of toes here, because unless we can somehow get away from this kind of magical thinking, we will not get to a good place. Now, by the same token, and this is important to understand. Now, I'm not an evolutionary scientist, and I'm no Richard Dawkins, okay? So I have faith myself, absolutely have faith. And I believe in the supernatural as well, okay? Because it's all around me, and I've seen things that are, and experienced things that are just,
simply don't have a scientific explanation.
No, completely not. So there's more to our life than simple science, etc. So that's absolutely true. But we must take care, I think, not to use that faith that we also dearly need to discriminate or separate or punish and exclude. Right? We should not do that. Believe whatever you like, as long as it doesn't become an exclusion for others or suffering for others. Right? I mean, let me ask you this question. Let's say you're a Christian, right? You're a Christian. And you really believe in all the Christian things. And then maybe you're a fundamentalist Christian. And then you meet this really nice person, and you have lunch with them, maybe you work with them, and you find out, well, they're not Christian. And maybe they're an atheist, maybe they're agnostic, I don't know, maybe they're Buddhist. But in your belief system, that person is going to go to hell. Now, we're going to bust that myth as well, by the way. But in your belief system, at least as far as you know, you think that this person is going to go to hell. It's a nice person. And you're breaking bread with that person every day. You work with that person, you chat with that person. But in your heart of hearts, you know that this person is going to hell. That makes absolutely no sense to carry that kind of weight, because that would make you feel terrible. If you're a halfway decent human being, then that knowledge should torture you, right? And that's, of course, why we see a lot of actions from the Christians to proselytize and turn people into Christians, right? Because that's what we want. And it's not what's necessary. What's necessary is to accept the possibility that you're wrong. This person doesn't need saving, and this person is not going to hell. And we're gonna spend some time on that concept. Isn't that possible? I mean, how do you know? And I ask anyone out there in the world, how do you know you're right? I've asked the people.
Yeah. So none of the religions have any true proof, and they're all faith-based. And this is the difficulty when you've been, you're a dyed-in-the-wool believer of your religion, but you're confronted with someone with different views. And I think that's the struggle with everyone who believes in any faith.
Yeah.
And that can't be an easy situation to survive if you begin to question yourself.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And how? Okay, all right. I got another one for you. This is an interesting one. Let's say you're a fundamentalist. Anything. It doesn't really matter what fundamentalism you subscribe to. But your child comes to you and says, "Oh, look, father or mother, I'm gay." What? Yeah, I'm gay. What? And is your first thought, oh, I got to get into a reprogramming class, or I must exorcise the demons out of his soul, or I have to move to Nantucket. I don't know. No, I'm kidding.
Or depending on the religion, you better keep that quiet, or that'll be the end of you.
Yeah. Or do you completely? Yeah. Do you now disown your child? I mean,
or just run. Yeah. Get out of here.
What do you do at that point? What kind of human being are you? And I know people that, in my opinion, have failed that test because they were confronted with real life scenarios. No, I personally don't know anyone that was gay and shunned by their family for it, but I know other scenarios where other things have happened, and the family chose to shun the child or completely lost the plot, or things like that of that nature. And in my opinion, those parents have failed as parents. In fact, they have failed as human beings. You failed the human beings test. You're no longer part of the human being family because you failed a very basic test of nurturing and protecting your child, irrespective of anything. And it is really. I struggle with this myself when I see these things, or when I hear about it, or when I think about it. It's just. Religion is still here. It is still strong, and it is dividing us massively. We don't want to believe it. We keep it in the background, but look at the world. I mean, really look at it. Think about the examples we talked about. They're all real. It's sometimes even front page news. It's happening. Okay, it is still an important aspect.
So it doesn't disturb me that there are many religions, and I'm okay with it. And I know we're going to talk about the development of religions over time, and get into some depth there in some future shows. But the level at which religion is now prominent again, I think is very interesting, because we've seen some massive movements. I know in the evangelist style in California when I was growing up over there. Now we've seen the rise and kind of fall, I suppose, of Hillsong because of financial corruption or something. I don't want to get into, because I don't know any of the details. But we've seen the following of some religions and I've got some friends of mine that follow Hillsong, and I'm gonna say this. So there are certainly those people who follow a religion because either they were born into it, or they've made the choice to do so at some point in their life, or maybe they were in one religion, didn't like it, went to another, or they married into religion, forcefully having to take that religion on when there was something else as well, because these are all parts of being able to be join a religion. The other is when you're knowingly part of a religion and it starts to collapse around you, that there's things that are proven, like all that financial, is it Tammy and something Baker in America?
Yeah.
Where there was, I forget the names, but where they were basically embezzling all the money for themselves, right? They were ultra wealthy as a result of building all these huge glass pyramids and speaking the word of the Lord, right? But they were doing the opposite in real life, and so the whole thing was a farce. If you find out that your religion is a farce, then I'm disappointed for you in advance. For those people who that need to be part of a group, because everyone actually has a built-in desire to be part of a group of other like-minded people. Unless you're a total recluse, live in a mountain, and you're not going to hear the broadcast. But for the most part, I like being in a car car clubs. I like sharing hobbies with other people. I'm not a religious type of person because I see past the stories and I see all the inaccuracy of the stories for myself. But there's those that, let's just call them the sheep that have to join, right? These groups. Do they do it for themselves? Maybe not. Maybe they do it to find, peace in themselves or something. There's motivations there that I can't explain because I don't share those. But I find it difficult, Meki, when I'm having a discussion with someone who has recently joined a religion and they're trying to sell it to me like Tupperware.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't mind that you're in it. I don't mind your beliefs.
Yeah.
I'm not going to challenge them at all. Enjoy it. It's good fun.
But you need to be part of it, right? In their eye.
In their eye, yeah. Hey, guess what? This is the end of episode 560. Stay tuned for Jer Bear's After Hours show, which is awesome. Do stay tuned. And Jer Bear always has a great show. He's like one of the mainstays on the station. Get used to it. We'll see you midweek, Tuesday morning, Thursday morning for Plato's Cave, and then again, back again on Sunday. Inside out. Take care, everyone.